Afternoon. Well, it's a little wet out, but it's not terrible. If you start seeing me run from the rain, it'll be to protect my phone. But otherwise, I think we're good. The sky is cloudy, temperature is nice, and I hope you have a terrific weekend. And this is Friday, and I spent the day writing. Uh, Part of the test of writing, I think, is taking the tedious and making it accessible, either for persuasion or personal understanding or describing it to others. And that's what I think I do as a lawyer. And it's part of a teaching function. Others would say, oh, you're not teaching, you're using those tricks. Well, there are tricks, but intelligent people know the tricks, and you shouldn't use them because your credibility is the strongest aspect of what you believe and what you think should happen in any argument. So let's start off with a very sad story. The submersible that imploded, crushing its 5 passengers, something as quickly as a nanosecond. And it was an example of the Titanic Revisited in a way. And I think over time we may find that one of the problems was that the material that they used for the submersible is not what a lot of people use for submarines. And the problem with the material they used is that as they were going down deeper and deeper, there would be strips or rips or weaknesses in the body that was protecting the people within from the enormous pressures that were building as they went further down in the water. And so finally what happened is it just broke. Now the people who went on this, excuse me, all signed waivers, but I think the accuracy of what they were told about the safety of the submersibles is going to be important. And it sort of underscores what Teddy Roosevelt and the nation in its best moments has understood since then, which is that standards of work and materials and chemicals and foods and things like this should have to meet certain standards, and that preserves us from risk of illness, or in this case, extreme danger. And something like going down to where the Titanic was is not like any other quote water sport. It's really dangerous stuff. So I spoke about it being sad. Of course, it's sad when someone dies, particularly expecting they're going to have a grand adventure and nothing of the sort. But there was one person who was terrified to go on this mission, and it was the son of a man who told him it would be safe. And so now the father's intent was good. It's not, he didn't know anything. But the people who went on this each paid $250,000, and it cost them their lives. So they had other trips. I don't know if they had it with the same technology, but this underscores that when people say, oh, keep government out of it, we protect people from themselves when they're so energetic as to think, I have a better idea for this submarine. And somebody says, well, let's get some peer review, let's look at it, let's test it, things like that. I have no idea if those things were done, but we're going to hear it and rehear it and so forth. In fact, there was an editorial in the last couple of days that talks about aggregating the news. And it is how, I do it, we all do it. I participate in it, I guess, as well. We have, 6, 7 shows, very interesting personalities, different approaches, but it gets simplified into lead stories. And so all day long we talk about 3 or 5 stories when there are other things going on. Now, we are talking about the submersibles because I think it catches our human affection and relation. And some ask, well, should everybody be spending this much money on saving this crew, trying to detect if they were alive and to bring them back? And, I don't know what price you put on an emergency like this. But you begin with the presumption that you're trying to save people that are good and that they made good decisions and something went awry and it wasn't obvious. And I suppose that's the context in which we reach out to save people. There have been studies about how strangers will reach out and put themselves at risk to save a stranger because they feel so connected to the person suffering that they can't go on without helping. Now, this is not as immediate as reaching for someone on the edge of a cliff or trying to pull them up from the water or out of a car or any of these kinds of hypotheticals you would think of. But some of that is going on here, and that's not a bad thing. So instead of being the person who's looking at the bottom line, I'd like to look at the humanity of what people tried to do. In the category of humanity, now we talked about the border and how people at the border were not being protected, the migrants. And not too long ago, a boy, an 8-year-old, I believe it was a boy, he died, and he died because of neglect. It was in South Texas. I'd almost say no surprise, but we seem to be able to be neglectful in so many situations that transcend partisanship and geography. And this should be a call to do better, to DHS. I don't know if it will work or not. I just don't understand why we don't have buildings and an established, center to deal with the onslaught of people who are looking for a place that's safe, that would qualify under our asylum laws. And we act like we're surprised all the time about the pressure being brought to bear on us, and we don't do enough to acclimate to the situation that we know exists. So what is wrong with us? Now, in that category, while talking about insanity, up on the Hill, the crazed Republicans, but also home in Loudoun County where I am, we have the crazed Republicans. And a theme they used in Loudoun County, Virginia, where I am, but that the Republicans are using across the country, is to attack the weak underbelly of our system, our educational system, to make all sorts of terrible claims against it, to try to compromise it and shutting it down. We had an attorney general who interfered in our community with no good reason, and as a result of his interference, they prosecuted the information officer for the local school board, which before this happened, in my opinion, had a very good reputation. Putting aside some of the discussions and disputes that people have with school and so forth. But we have an active, atomized group of unhappy people who don't believe in public school, and so bring up charges. Oh my God, you're going to keep the schools closed to keep our children safe? Oh my God, you're going to treat these children with different orientations than you understand differently? Wow, this boy and this girl had sex, and one of them is a transgender person. What does that mean? Well, that's the context that we have in Loudoun County. And the school official, he was prosecuted for perjury, for relating what he recalled while in the grand jury. And today the trial ended, and he was acquitted. He was acquitted. And you know what he went through. This is a man, never been charged with anything in his whole life, spent his time at school trying to, in Loudoun County, explain what's going on. And we're going to see lots of these people, the people who volunteer to run for school boards. Most of those people, they just care about kids and education, and they got the itch because their children were in school or they were teachers. We're losing good people because of bad people, and we got to stop that. And so the next time somebody gets up at a school board and says some asinine thing that defies the facts and the law and common sense and goodwill and empathy toward others, get that person's name, stand up, and decry them. Don't call them names, call them out. Don't talk about imagined possibilities. Talk about why that person is wrong, what they're doing that compromises our education. Because the more these people win out, compromising our schools, the more we're unable to compete in the world of people who are educated and educating themselves. And so we compromise our children, we compromise our nation, because the stupid people are interfering with how we learn so that we can be proficient in situations. I believe myself, it's because of the education I got that I was interested in getting, because I thought, yes, I'm a strange kid, I really enjoyed school, and right up to law school. Another story. So we have to keep that in mind. And so that was a happy result, in my opinion, that poor man was acquitted today, and I hope he's having a wonderful time this evening getting over it all. But he is an example of what's happening across this nation, that people are being targeted and run down to make a political point when the facts don't support it. And it's an echo of what Trump did in the election with false claims of voter fraud and phony electors, and trying to get the vice president to say what was true factually, or that was a cognizable rule of law, in order to take over the White House, though he lost the election. So now, while I'm talking about that, and the man with 2 impeachments, that is Trump, the House is talking about impeaching Biden. Now, we've been through this before. That is to say, if you impeach, it has to be high crimes and misdemeanors. If you impeach, and then the Senate decides with more than 50 people that you were guilty, but doesn't get the 2/3, you can't erase that, as some of the people are saying. That's an historic event, is preserved by law, and there is no remedy to erase it and lie on the flip side that Trump, oh, he was a good guy. They impeached him, but that was all wrong. So we have that. You know, in South America, they have a situation that we could learn from. Bolsonaro, as an example, they're seeking to bar him from ever holding public office. No, it's not forever. It's a term of years. I don't remember how many years, 2, 4, 8, whatever. But we're not able to do that here. It's amazing. Now, one of my concerns, as you know, is our environment and how that's working and so forth. And over the years, I've been concerned about Native American rights. But my most peculiar experience was when I was running for Congress, and Native Americans got together, I forget which evening it was, at a bowling alley. I believe it was in Arlington. And I went there a couple of times, and I saw the same people in other places. But they were talking to me about Native American rights. And I thought of that today when the Supreme Court decided in a 5-4 decision not to answer the question of the Navajo Nation, which involves 17 million acres. And they're in that area where drought and water, well, are not in great supply. And we know that that entire area has other representatives, states, and they're getting their deals, and farmers are getting their deals. But the Navajo Nation said, just tell us what our rights are. And Kavanaugh wrote the decision for the 5. And it was read aloud in court today. And while he was reading it, there was a person who dissented and felt very strongly it was a wrong decision, who could hardly control himself, looking at the ceiling and stuff like that. But he was waiting for his opportunity to speak, because he spoke for the dissent. He spoke for the 4 people who were against Kavanaugh and company, who didn't want to decide the question of what are the water rights of the Navajo. And Kavanaugh basically said it was an 1868 treaty. So, what are we doing deciding what that means? Well, that's not what they asked. What they asked was, what are our water rights? Because water doesn't exist in very many, if not most cases, in a single location, like only on the 17 million acres. Not free and independent of other water sources. And so it's important to know what you have. And the families in the Navajo Nation use about 7 gallons of water a day, which is less than most other people. But here's the kicker: 91% of the Navajo Nation doesn't have the water they need. And so this is not some academic question. This is not some question about how many angels on the head of a pin or something like that. This is a matter of survival. And it's a matter of survival in the West, not just for the Navajo Nation, but I'd flip it around and say, the Supreme Court endorsed a view that said, you're not white. You're not among the states that have a right to know what their water rights are. And we don't want to tell you because we don't want you to be fighting over the water rights. We've decided who gets what. Okay, they didn't say that. That's my interpretation. Is it my speculation? Well, it's based on data points from other decisions going back to 1868 when this treaty was signed. So that's a kind of a sad way to finish my review of stories that caught my attention. But I think it's important that we start looking around at the other issues rather than judge incrementally what is happening with Trump and his various criminals. I'm almost at the point where don't call me unless you're going to tell me you've indicted someone. Don't call me unless you tell me you've convicted someone. Don't call me unless you brought somebody else to justice and an accounting for what's been going on in this country that has gone unpunished, safe from prosecution, safe from abridgment. How is it that the lawyers who have done so much in violation of their oath, in violation of the law, in violation of the Constitution, have not been disbarred? Yes, I'm talking about Rudy. I'm talking about all these guys who are doing this stuff. It's just outrageous. So, that's my thinking for the day. And I think if we all talk about it, even if we just did that, we can change America for the better. Bring it back to what it's supposed to be. Give us the stability that allows us to be a great nation again. Because we're not now. We lie about it, but we're not doing it. We're not fulfilling our destiny as the, beacon of light and hope and freedom and equality. We're not that nation. But we can get back to it if we resolve to do so. If we get rid of those people who are in the way, who don't care or give a damn about any of these values. And that's what we have to do. So, I'm on my soggy but not rainy walk in the Cathedral of Trees. And so until tomorrow, I'll talk to you. Bye-bye.